Hello, hi, and welcome to my live stream tonight. I'm thrilled to be doing this. We've got a little show for you. I'm going to be talking here in just a couple of minutes with Duncan Fremlin, and you're probably following. You may be following this on my page or Duncan's page or my Stompin Tom page. I have a page called Stompin Tom Connors, The Myth and the Man, named after my book of the same name, and the book has just come out in softcover. So, in order to help promote the book and tell people about the softcover edition, which is slightly different, I decided to do a couple live streams and talk to people who knew and worked with Tom. And one of the people that I talked to when I first wrote the book was a man named Duncan Fremlin, and we've become friends over the last 2 or 3 years. I interviewed him for a live stream I was doing around this time last year, and he's a great guest. He's got some wonderful stories. He was a bandmate of Tom's and became friends with Tom. He performed on tour with him, performed on his recordings. He's also the leader of the band Whiskey Jack. Many of you may have seen their show in celebration of Stompin' Tom called, I think it's Songs and Stories of Stompin' Tom. Duncan will correct me on that if I'm wrong. He was also a regular on the Tommy Hunter Show. Anyway, he's great to chat to. He's now a friend of mine, I'm happy to say, and I've got him here with me tonight. So let me bring him on and we'll talk some more. Here we go. Duncan Fremlin. Are you there, Duncan?
I'm here, Charlie. Can you hear me?
I can.
And that's I'm going to correct you. I'm going to correct you right off the bat. It's stories. Whiskey Jack presents Stories and Songs of Stompin' Tom is the brand, and you just had the stories. You just had a little mixed up there. You're not the first to do that.
Well, do you know what? I don't know if you noticed when I said Stompin' Tom Connors, The Myth and the Man, I always have to check the book because I'm always like, is it the man and the myth or the myth and the man?
Who wrote that thing anyway?
I know. They didn't let me come up with my own title. Formac Publishing's very good to me, but they come up with the title. So, So before we get going, we do want to acknowledge that it's Remembrance Day today. So we wanted to start with a little bit of that, and then we'll talk more about you and I and our relationship to Tom and each other and all that. But Remembrance Day, when you and I picked a date, you thought today was appropriate to do this live stream, in part because of Tom's feelings about the military.
Yeah, he's one of these celebrities who could sort of walk that thin line between supporting the military, but yet not being a warmonger, because he was not at all. He was he certainly supported the troops for obvious reasons, and he wrote songs about them and wrote poetry about them, etc. So, and he was very close to them. I think he did some tours with them. But the story that I like that really speaks to me was the definitive song was one that he spent a lot of time on back in the early 1990s. It's called the Blue Berets. And he asked Whiskey Jack, when we were doing the album Dr. Stompin' Tom A back at the studio in 1993, he asked us to come up with a kind of a musical background for this song, which we did, and recorded it. And now, I've been a banjo player for a long time, but I came to the table quite late in life, and I've had this sort of overriding insecurity about my skills and abilities. And so Tom called me to the house one day after he had released the album, and they had made a really fancy video back in the video days for Blue Beret. And so he called me to the house one day, and he wanted me to see the video. And I didn't quite, it was a good video. And we sat there in the living room, and he played it 2 or 3 times. Tom liked to play things often. So anyway, he said, did you notice anything different about this song? And I said, I'm sorry, Tom, but I don't. And he said, well, I liked your banjo solo so much, I had the engineer double it. So they played the solo twice. Really? And I can't tell you how that puffed up I felt about how important that was for me to know that he, appreciated not just my what I played or how I played it, but just the contribution I made to that song. So that was pretty important to me. So I always think of, if actually I have it sort of queued up here. Can we just play a little bit of this?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully this will come through.
For we are the Blue Berets, and though we're far away, our family and our friends who come to call. If you count the lonely days, you'll see your Blue Berets marching home again to say we love you all.
All those fancy triplets. I guess he liked the fancy triplets.
That's great. Yeah, the banjo solo really stands out there. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song in particular, I know I wrote about it in my book as well, because Romeo Dallaire, who was the Canadian general in charge of the United Nations during the when they were providing assistance during the genocide in Rwanda, he said that in his book "Shake Hands with the Devil," he said that when his headquarters were under bombardment, he would play Tom's songs in order to keep up his troops' morales, including that Blue Berets song. So
there is a sort of a level of Canadian music establishment that where you can't go wrong with a Tom song. And it stems back to that really important time in his life when he went to sit at a table in a bar. I think it was in Timmins, and there were some school teachers there that had come home from Germany, and they didn't have any Canadian songs that they could sing around the table. Like the Germans had all these amazing local folk songs and stuff. And so that's why Tom's songs there are certain circumstances, man, you just can't go wrong. You just pull out But the Spud or the hockey song or something. I don't care if you're classical or jazz or whoever, there are certain circumstances where that's the only song that will work at that time. I'm being on the road with this as we are all the time. I experience many of these moments. So
yeah, I actually wrote a play called The Maritime Way of Life, and in it there's a character who's a big Stompin Tom fan, and he asks one of the other people, have you heard of it? Don't you know Bud the Spud? And the guy goes, well, I think I heard of it. And he goes, heard of it? It's one of the best darn songs ever written about a potato. So if you're looking for a song about a potato, that's the song.
Can't go wrong there.
No, for sure. No, before we get going here, we've had a few comments. So I just, Alan Dalton is watching and wished us a good show. And Alan runs the Stompin Tom fan club page on Facebook. Him and John Arsenault do that together.
He also, if I can point out, Charlie, he also does some amazing interviews. It's he's not Johnny Carson, but he does a fantastic job of disarming his subjects. I have been one of the subjects that has been disarmed, and we end up saying things, and but he's good. And so if you get on, I think they're on the fan page, Alan, is that correct? And it's the Facebook fan page. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was interviewed here, I think he interviewed me a month or two ago, and it was on the Stompin Tom fan club page. So if you're looking for that. And then Jeff Kennedy's watching again tonight, and he mentioned Tom also wrote the song Bibles and Rifles, of course. And my Aunt Carol's watching, and Lincoln Muller. Anyway, I feel like I'm doing Romper Room, just saying hi to everybody. Oh, and Edwin Heistad's watching. Did you ever play with him?
Oh, Edwin, Edwin has been a fervent supporter of my show and this whole thing right from the get-go. He's from Saskatchewan. I've never met the man in person, but I'd like to tell him, since he's watching, how important his emails and his positive vibes are, because sometimes it gets discouraging trying to sell a show to an audience that is shrinking by the day. We're getting older, Charlie. There's not as many of us around as there were. Many of the younger people today just don't know who Tom is or was, and that's frustrating in and of itself. So Edwin, very important, man. Thanks so much. We're going to make it out there someday.
Yeah, Edwin, I said, did you play with him? But I was thinking of someone else for a second. But Edwin, I called him in my book one of Tom's #1 fans. He's certainly a huge fan. I interviewed him for my book as well. Anyway, I'm just going to see what happens if I do that. Nah, we don't need to be up that close, do we? That's better.
I don't know. I trimmed the hairs in my nose today, so it's okay.
Did you? I actually got a haircut for you, Duncan. I didn't shave.
Well, I know. I was just saying how very attractive you are today, Charlie. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't hear you say that, but you were just thinking it to yourself, were you? I like your
didn't say that.
I like your hat and your backdrop, Duncan. You look very professional. So now, just so people know, I wrote a book about Stompin Tom, and I was looking to interview people who knew and worked with him. And I reached out to you, and not everybody was willing to talk to me initially. So what I found interesting, though, was after my book came out, all of a sudden I was getting a whole bunch of new stories, and people who I hadn't been able to track down before were suddenly willing to talk to me or coming out of the woodwork. And so when they went to put out the softcover, I said, do I rewrite it and add a bunch of stuff? And they asked me to write an afterward. So I wrote like an extra 18 pages with new stuff. But because you and I have stayed in touch all this time, I found out that you too have had things happen since your book came out. And so tonight, what I wanted to do is talk about that, but there'll be a little bit of music just so people know. We're going to give away a couple books, and at some point we'll take questions from you. I won't keep reading all the comments right now in the middle of the conversation, but at some point we'll take some questions. So you were one of the few people who was willing to talk to me in the early days. There weren't a lot. There were a handful of you, and I really appreciated that. So tell me about, let me plug your book now here for a second. So I showed mine, My Good Times with Stompin Tom. And I showed that picture off the top when we first went live, just so people, that's a great picture of you and Tom there. So why don't you tell me a little about your book, Duncan, how you came to write it?
First of all, Charlie, I did speak with you, but you were such a suspicious character. I held my cards very close to my chest. No. I've been very respectful of the privacy of the family, and and Thomas made it pretty clear where he stood in life, and so I've been very respectful of that. So I'm sure other people too, when you called them, were just had to stop and think, I was part of the inner circle, really, and that's a pretty privileged place to be in this world, in Tom's world. So we didn't want to jeopardize that at all. But your book proved to be such a fair, just there's nothing in there that isn't public knowledge. Ultimately, it's just you assembled it in a very interesting and entertaining way. So in my case, I just had all these stories swirling around in my little brain for all these years, and I'd been on the road maybe 2 or 3 years with the show, telling stories just off the top of my head. And Lena, she had mentioned in passing one time, "You're going to write a book," and after hearing
that's Tom's wife, for people who don't know.
Yes. So with my friend Jim Bain, who's a former publisher or editor with the Montreal Gazette and numerous other newspapers, he really helped me with this, and I started assembling stories. And next thing you know, it's a book. But what I found out later, what I discovered just recently, is that I kept a journal during the years in 1990 when I was on tour, and even some of the 1993 tour. I wasn't religious about it. I didn't do it every day, but I would jot down thoughts and things that happened. And I did the book. I wrote the book without that journal. So I've just released the 3rd edition, or I've just ordered the 3rd edition. I've sold 2 already. So it looks like we're hitting the road again in the spring. So I've ordered more books, and maybe before I do it the next time, the 4th, I'll sit down and do what you did and write a few extra pages to go along with it. And because some of those stories are kind of they're different. I mean, just some of the antics that went on are just crazy.
Do you want to give us a teaser tonight? Do you want to tell me one of the stories?
I don't have the journal in front of me, but there was the one about Tom and Tom Gallant was on the tour. JP, Mickey, and Mary, and I think all the boys went. Mary stayed home. They went out one night after the show, and I guess they had a few pops, and they were feeling pretty silly, and they came back, and they had nicknames for each other. And it struck me because I spent a lot of time in hockey dressing rooms to this day. I've been in a band with a lot of men. When we get together, I don't know about you, Charlie, but our maturity level is reduced to a very low. And this was one example of all of these adult men just behaving like little kids. So I'll write that story when I sit down and do it. It's sort of when you're on the road for long periods of time, and this was a long tour, you got to do things to loosen, keep it loose, and that was one of the ways that they did. I sometimes feel for Mary. She was the only lady on the tour, and amazingly talented woman. My God, she's this piano, and she plays so many other instruments.
Not a lot. I was just going to say, not a lot of women ever toured or recorded with Tom. Like she's the only example I can think of off the top of my head who was in his band ever. Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were frozen for a second. Nope. Yeah, it was just very much a boys' club, that band, and then they're all beer drinkers, and I just want you to know, Duncan, my mother is watching, and she said, "Hi guys, loving this. You're both handsome and very talented." So she finds you handsome too.
I love you, Mom.
So now, when my book first came out, I got some money from the government, Arts Nova Scotia, and my publisher Formac did, and I was going to tour Ontario, and so you and I had plans in the spring of 2020, just before COVID hit. I was coming to Ontario, and you and I were going to hit the road. We're going to read from our books, and you were going to play music, and then that got canceled because of COVID. So then I did the online interviews. But anyway, someday I hope we can actually do something together live and see people.
Yeah, I had a special baby seat installed in the back of my car for you, Charlie, when this thing hit, and then it got canceled. I had to send it back. So darn.
See, I haven't spent a lot of time on the road with a bunch of guys, so you're going to have to teach me about drinking and all that stuff. I don't know about any of that.
Oh boy, you're in for it, pal. You've been in the theatrical business for a long time, so you know immaturity when you see it. So
I actually was going to say the rehearsal hall gets pretty silly by times. It's pretty much the same. So just speaking of COVID, how has that affected? Because maybe talk about how you came to do. I know you say you don't call it a tribute show. It's more a celebration of Tom. Is that right? Yeah.
Mostly, Charlie, because that tribute word implies that one of us is coming out dressed as Tom, and we're going to pretend we're Tom Connors. I would never, ever, ever in a million years do that. I've seen people do it. It's embarrassing. It's an insult to Tom, and I just wouldn't do it.
Right. You do your own version of Tom's songs.
Well,
right? Like,
look at it.
You do your own spin on them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, is there an example here? If Elvis Presley's lead guitar player, I forget his name right now, but he toured with Elvis for many years. If he came out with a tribute show, you wouldn't expect him to dress like Elvis, etc. You'd want him to tell you, who was this guy? What was he really like? What was he like backstage? What were some of the stories? Well, I feel like I'm kind of that guy that can bring the backstage to the stage, and the home parties and the kitchen parties, bring them to the stage for people to get a taste of what it was really like, and why we all loved him and so much,
Yeah. And one of the things I liked about your book, I'll plug it again, was that you say my good times with Stompin Tom, but you also had some bad times with Stompin Tom, because he was a human being, as opposed, I know sometimes we elevate stars to a different level, like they're always a good person or whatever. And Tom had some bad traits. He was a little bit tough to get along with by times, and you don't shy away from that, which I really like.
Well, that would be the pot calling the kettle black if I were to come out and say my shitty times with Tom. I mean, I was as big a dick as he was sometimes, and that's all part of being. First of all, we were kind of partners. I mean, I was taking care of the band, and he was taking care of everything else, and so I who the hell am I to? But yeah, he was sometimes difficult, but I think I could match him in that department. That's why we almost came to blows.
That's right. You almost had a fist fight one night, didn't you?
Well, no, would have been one-sided, Charlie. A fist fight implies two people participating in the fight. I wouldn't have had the chance to get up and throw a punch. I'm sure
you would have been just out.
I would have been laying there.
And that story's in the book if people want to look for it. I won't get you to. Yeah, it's a fairly long story. So now the show that you were doing, stories and songs of Stompin Tom, is that right? That's it. Story. So how has COVID affected that, and where are you now with it? Like, are you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. That's really terrific news. Is that we have a tour of the East Coast. It's booked, and we're in the process of trying to extend it. April of 2022. So if you go to whiskeyjackmusic.com, whiskey with an E, whiskeyjackmusic.com, look under shows, you'll see the list of the shows that we have booked to date. We're going to be at many of the major centers. Excuse me. And plus I have other things on the burner that I'm trying to secure right now. Most of us have been on the road most of our lives. So we're not road warriors. We're not out there, doing 150 dates a year. So we kind of pick and choose what we do. And Maritimes obviously is at the top of the list for obvious reasons. Certain parts of Ontario, I've been talking to Tilsonburg about doing a show for them. And, that kind of thing really interests us. So we've been able to keep it going because of, thankfully, because me and my musical partner, Douglas John Cameron, we both have recording studios in our house. We're both pretty skilled at videos and editing and that kind of thing. So we've been busy learning, some new songs or rearranging, or, we've been keeping our we've been keeping busy, and also we're trying to keep in touch with our fans, knowing that at some point in time we're coming back. So it would have been pretty easy, Charlie, I think, for many of us in the arts to just sort of throw in the towel and say, okay, especially when you're in your early 70s like I am. I could have very easily just said, the heck with it. I've done it for decades. I'm tired. But no, man, I'm playing better banjo, and the band is sounding better than it's ever sounded before. And we've worked so hard to get to this level. It's like you're Clint Eastwood and you're 85. You've been acting your whole life. What are you going to do? You're going to keep acting. I'm not Clint Eastwood, Charlie. I'm not. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that.
Although one of the comments, somebody said Tom looked pretty tough back in his Timmins days. I thought he said you looked pretty tough. Sorry, I was like, somebody knew you had Timmins days. I didn't even know that, Duncan. Anyway, no. It's funny. Elton John is, I think, similar in age to you. I think he's early 70s. You said you're early 70s, and he was getting ready to do a farewell tour, and I had tickets to do that in 2020, and I was like, is he just going to say, never mind, I'll just end it? But he didn't. He's coming back to do the farewell tour. He's going to do it 2 years later. So yeah, I think a lot of people are still, they're not giving up, which is great.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, you sort of set me up there because you mentioned Tillsonburg, and I was going to do this later, but since we're talking about Whiskey Jack, and you guys do your own versions of Stompin' Tom stuff, and you mentioned Tillsonburg, so I've got a little clip here. It's just 45 seconds long, but it'll give people a feel for how Whiskey Jack interprets a Stompin' Tom song. So why don't we play that for them?
My back still aches when I hear that word. Well, away down southern Ontario, never had a nickel or a dime to show. Fella beeps up in an automobile, says, you wanna go work on the tobacco field? He said, I only give you $7 a day. If you're any good, you get a raise in pay. Your bed's already on the bunkhouse floor. If it gets a little chilly, just close the door. Tillsonburg, Tillsonburg, oh Tillsonburg, Tillsonburg, my back still aches when I hear that word.
That's great. I love the sideways ball cap there.
What was I going to say about? Oh yeah, somebody said to us recently. I had a promoter on the phone last week, and he was asking, I'm trying to describe to him this show, and you haven't seen it, Charlie, but you've seen snippets of it on YouTube, and there's quite a bit. There is quite a bit available on our YouTube channel. But somebody said the other day, Jennifer Warren recorded a CD or an album of Leonard Cohen songs. I think Blue Raincoat or something was the name of the
famous
album.
Blue Raincoat.
She took his songs and elevated them, I thought, and most of us thought, to an incredibly high level. Production was great. Performance was great. Leonard never did say he was the best singer in the world, but Jennifer Warren is one of the best singers in the world. I like to think that we've done the same thing for Tom's material, that we've redefined it and sort of reshaped it into to a more modern sound, or at least to Whiskey Jack sound. We do have our own sound. We've been a vocal band most of these decades. So some of these songs, and I've said to you before many times, it's the songs that really is going to survive and make this legacy into a bigger than it's ever been, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. And it's the song. It's a compliment that those songs can be reinterpreted for a different age and different era and different sound. And I think you described that Tillsonburg as kind of a ragtime sound. And it's kind of. I've told you my partner Heather will do Stompin' Tom songs. She's got a pretty voice and does it with a ukulele, and it has like a folky sound, and it's just very different. But I think it speaks to the strength of the songs for sure.
Yes.
So I've actually put your little the banner up at the bottom there. So this is your YouTube page, and people Banjo Dunk. I don't know if you can see what it says, but that way, if people follow that, they can get a lot of the Whiskey Jack videos there, right?
Yes, it's become quite popular, and we're going to be I've got such great stuff coming up. I'm doing a little feature on boot records, and I've interviewed 3 people so far. I'm going to interview Leona Boyd. I'm just doing some snippets about how important boot records was to their careers. And I'm amazed at what I'm hearing. So I'm working on that. That's going to be uploaded to there. And I also have some other footage that I didn't realize I had. And I have to now go back to it and kind of cut it up a little bit and pretty it up and clean up the sound and stuff. But there's also one, I don't even know where I got it, Charlie. It's not the greatest footage, but I think I told you that we used to go to the house, to the birthday parties,
Yeah,
And
and
he had a
Tom's.
little stage in his bar. He had his own bar, right? We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
He had a little stage, and somebody, and I don't know who sent it to me, sent me a clip that was made on an old iPhone, so it wasn't very good, but a clip of Tom singing. I think it's either Bud the Spud or Sudbury Saturday Night with us on this stage at the birthday party. And
Oh
there's
my
no other
gosh.
footage. There's no other footage around like this, as far as I know. So I'm going to be putting that up at some point too. So they have
Oh,
to
that's
subscribe to the channel if they want to make sure they catch all this cool stuff. So please
So
subscribe.
there they go. They go to the channel there. And this is a picture from one of those parties, right? That's you and Tom. Is that his 75th birthday or something? Or
That
do you
was
remember?
that was his 75th. That's right. My daughter Erin took that picture. She came up with me and had a hoot
Okay.
with everybody. Yeah.
That's in Tom's basement where he had the bar. Is that right?
No, it's he had he built a kind of a rec room slash bar office house. He told me one time it was the Ottawa Senators who paid for the bar because they started playing the hockey song during the hockey games. And next thing you know, all of the arenas are playing it, and that puts some money into his pocket. So
I remember. I think that. Yeah, I think I talked about that in my book. Yeah, Boot Records was Tom's record label was important. And, a lot of people, Leona Boyd, I think that was her very first album, I think was with Boot Records. I'm going to plug my other book. I have another book too. I wrote a book about Rita McNeil, and Rita's there called I'm Not What I Seem. If you're interested, if you're a Rita McNeil fan. But anyway, her very first album, although she wasn't signed to Boot Records, they released it and distributed it. She recorded it on her own. So anyway, I look forward to seeing what you do with that. Now, one of the things when I was when I was doing the research, one of the people I wanted to talk to was Gate Lapine. And Gate is the man who's responsible in many ways for giving Tom his career, because Tom had been going around to bars and getting kicked out because he was in pretty rough shape. He was a bit of a bum, living, sleeping in cars, living on the street. And he walked into the Maple Leaf Hotel in Timmins, Ontario. And Gate Lapine, Tom was short 5 cents for a beer. Gate said, I see you got a guitar. Sing me a song. I'll pay for your beer. And he ended up staying there. I think it was for 16 or 18 months. It's been 3 years since I wrote most of the book. So some of the details, I'm like, was it 16 or 18? But he stayed there for almost a year and a half. Gate was responsible for his career in many ways because a lot of other people didn't give him that opportunity. And I wanted to talk to Gate, and I could not track him down. I tried calling numbers. I looked everywhere on Facebook and in Canada 411. And then after my book came out, you started talking to Gate Lapine, and you put me in touch with him, and I interviewed him. And there's some great stuff. It was 18 months. Jeff Kennedy just told me. There's some great stuff in the book now that I got from Gate Lapine that I didn't know before. So do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Gate and what's resulted from that?
Well, first of all, he's really Canada's James Bond. He's a spy, so he's very 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 hard to nail down. He changes his name all the time. It's Gatien, then it's Gates, then it's Gate, and
even Gate spelled two different ways.
Yes, that's right. His camouflage is that he swears like that. Oh man, this guy has words that I never even thought existed. He's a colorful character. Anyway, after my book was published, somehow, maybe through Facebook, I don't know how it happened. His cousin Rolly, who has also written a book about Gate, he bought a copy, gave it to Gate, and next thing you know, I wish I had a copy of it in front of me. I should read some of this. I'm going to put it in the extra chapters I had to the next edition. Oh, he gave me the most amazing review of my book. I couldn't be happier. He said, "Man, you nailed it." And this guy was there. He was there from 1964 on. And the other one, Mickey Andrews, was another one who gave me an amazing review. I recorded it, so someday I'll put that on the YouTube channel. It kind of makes me feel like maybe I'm an author after all, but no, I'm not in your league, Charlie. But Gate's quite a character. He's 84. He's having a bit of a health issue right now, but everything seems to be okay. He was there. I mean, I was there. I met him in 1990 when I first walked in Tom's furnace room the first time, and there was Gate and Tom and a bunch of other people, and he was there in 93 on the tour. So he's been a mainstay in Tom's life for a very long time, and they co-wrote many songs. In fact, this is a good segue. Can I just talk about the so Gate?
Yeah,
gave
I was
me-
just going to say that not only did he discover them, they actually became really
Yeah.
good friends. And there's one
Yeah.
album in particular that has a number of Gate songs on it.
Well, don't
Blue
say what that is,
Guitar.
'cause that's going to
Okay.
be
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's going to be the trivia the question. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So-
I won't talk about
Yeah,
that. But anyway,
don't
sorry.
talk
So
about
I just want to tell
Don't
people
screw it up
they
like you did last time, Charlie. Because last time, remember, you
did I give away your trivia?
inadvertently gave the answer. Before. Remember when we did this last time?
I don't see. You should send me your question when I send you an email and say come up with a
that's
question.
okay. I'll
You should
come up
tell
with
me
it.
so I don't ruin it. Anyway,
Well, I figure if I told you, you'd ruin it. But anyway,
okay. So you go on about Gate.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just they're good
Gate
friends.
gave me. I saw him not this summer, but the previous summer. I went down to Ottawa and sat with him for a few hours. And he had his guitar. He's arthritic, can't play very well, but he had all these pages of lyrics so he and Tom would go and they'd write. They wrote songs from when they first met back in the early 60s. And there were 15 songs that Gate went home with. Usually they would write a song. Tom would take it, register with SOCAN or whatever, record it or not, but invariably it ended up in Tom's possession. These 15 songs, Gate ended up taking. And his plan was to bring them back to the house and they would finish them at some point. But then that didn't happen. So he ended up with 15 songs that the two of them had written the lyrics, and he had some semblance of melody, but again, he couldn't play guitar and very well, and his singing wasn't what it was. So it was really hard to pick up the melody. So he said to me, you take those 15 songs and see what you can do with them. So I've kind of committed to going through them, which I've done. And we have two of them recorded. We played one of them at a gig in Alliston a few weeks ago for Lena. First time we'd ever played it in public. And the band is nuts about it. It's called Snarly's Hell. I don't have a copy of it with me tonight, but there's another song that they wrote. And I love the turnaround in it. It's called 2 Days from Regina. And so, I was looking at this and listening to Gates' interpretation of what the melody might be and everything. And he kept saying to me, don't just do what you do with the song, So I looked at it and said, given the lyrics and everything, I wonder what it's going to sound like if it's a blues song. So my buddy, Douglas John Cameron, multi-instrumentalist, recording engineer, incredibly talented man. He recorded a version of it with him singing. Can I play just a little bit of this?
For sure. Yeah.
It's called 2 Days from Regina. And I think we're going to be good to go. And let me just try this. Let me know if you can hear this, Charlie.
Okay.
Apparently not. Oh, there we go.
There, we can hear it.
I'm 2 days from Regina, 2 days from home, 2 days from that prairie town. Lord, I'm so alone. Trace that map so often, mark the town I'm in. And if you leave the highway open, I'll be home again. Headed east last summer, looking for a better day. I thought it must be better still than the place I should have stayed. I learned a hard lesson.
Yeah, you kind of get the idea. It's
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
I just
So that-
what would it sound like if Downchild had that? Like if they just wailed on this, Anyway, I'm
So
very
that's a
excited.
song written by Gate and Tom, and then by you and one other person. Is that correct?
Douglas John, that's right. So it's a Connors, Lapine, Fremlin, Cameron song. It'll never be registered that way because Tom's catalog is slammed shut. But I can tell you that that's where it came from.
It's still pretty cool. Yeah. So now, okay, we're going to give away a copy of your book. Why don't we do that? Do you want to, you ask it? So I can see comments here. So get ready to type. You're going to ask a question. Whoever types it first, they're going to get a copy of your book.
Okay, except Alan Elton Dalton is not allowed to win this book. Okay. Alan knows more about the Tom legacy probably than I or anybody else does. So Alan, you are excluded from this. But which album really is a Connors Lapine which is the most dominated by Connors Lapine songs?
Yeah, one of the albums, I think like 4 or 5 of the songs are Connors Lapine songs, aren't they? Can you see the comments as well?
No, I can't. I don't. Wait a minute. Yes, I can. I bet I can. Just a minute. Yeah, there we are.
Okay, because someone wrote, don't know. Let's see. We'll see if we get a comment.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
in
well,
the meantime, while we're waiting for that comment to come in, I just wanted to say one of the things that Gate long gone to the U.
Paul Andre won. Paul Andre.
There
Paul,
you go. Paul.
We need your mailing address, and I'll stick this book in the mail first thing. Good man.
Either one of us can message him from here, so we can just send a message through Facebook to get that. Yeah, there you go. Long gone to the Yukon. That's great. So now, Gate, you put me in touch with him, and I got to interview him. And you say, he ended up with these songs, but part of it is because him and Tom, after years and years of being best friends, had this huge falling out one Christmas Eve. And Gate told me that story. And one of the things, I got hints from people that Tom, when he was drinking, not beer, but sometimes he'd get into the whiskey or he'd drink for a few days without eating, and things could get quite dark and quite mean. And people hinted at that when I interviewed them, but nobody would really come right out and say it. And then Gate told me some stories. And then Alan Dalton wrote, I knew that. So that's why he wasn't allowed to win. But anyway, Gate told me some stories, and J.P. Cormier has since in the last year come out with some stories as well. But there was a very dark side to Tom that people didn't want to talk about for quite a while, but they seem more open to it now. Do you find that as well? People are talking more? Or?
Yeah. I'm hoping that when I die, that my dark side will remain below the radar as well.
Or would you like to beat them? We could beat them to the punch. You could just tell me now. So what's some of the dark stuff, Duncan?
I've got you. You're in the will, Charlie. So again, it's I think I always qualify it by thinking about where he came from, what he had to do to succeed, and who he was. Here's the neat thing. There's a guy named Brent Williams. He's an old country and western star. I think he's a member of the East Coast Country Music Hall of Fame. Yeah. He's from Nova Scotia. I think he lives near Peterborough now somewhere. I spoke to him at length about Blue Records, actually. He's one of the guys I spoke to. And he knew Tom back in the late 60s. So he knew like long before one would be at a bar and on one side of town, Brent would be at the other bar on the other side of town, and they'd overlap, and he'd go see Tom play and vice versa. In those days, this would be mid 60s probably. And Brent told me that like this, whoever Tom was at the end, that's who Tom was in the mid 1960s. So whenever I think about that, I think, he had a dark side. The band would avoid. We made a pact with each other that we wouldn't bring any hard liquor to the table in the evening. It was just a much better day, much better picking session, much better kitchen party if the hard liquor wasn't there. But I got to say, it would have applied if we had consumed that hard liquor as well. So I
would have passed that,
Charlie. I blame it on that damn liquor. That's what I blame it on.
He was also, and one of the things, the reason I called my book The Myth and the Man is because there are certain myths built up around Stompin' Tom, but I wanted to get at the man. And there's elements of him I knew nothing about, like what a great businessman he was. He was so good at marketing, and he understood philosophy and religion and all kinds. So I'm not saying there's just the dark side. I'm just saying there's another element to him, which to me just makes it more interesting. There's a little stuff I didn't know that I'm finding out. And, anyway, Alan Dalton, I'm just going to read you a comment. He said, there's no dark side to Duncan. He's a great man, as are you, Charlie. And it's not just because I want another interview with you both.
Shameless. That man can be shameless when he wants to be, I'll tell you.
But yeah, one of the things, like you said, when you think of where Tom came from, and just, he grew up on the streets kind of as an orphan at 14, 15, had to take care of himself, and he became tough and he didn't trust people. And anyway, I get into all that in the book. But one of the things I want to talk about my book here. Well, first, were you going to sing a little bit of a song, or would you rather not?
Yeah, it's too complicated. I'd have to, it's
okay. I had that on the list, but then I thought since you played that bit, that was probably it. But I was just going to tell people a little bit about one of the people that I got to interview for this, the new afterward. It's not a lot. There's like 15 new pages, but I was just going to read a little chunk. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go. I'm going to be primarily on screen and just tell this little story about Tom's background. Yeah. So here we go. We'll still hear you though. There you go. So don't say anything rude or whatever. So you're still there. But when I first wrote the book, a lot of you will know that Tom was, his mother was taken from him when he was 8 years old, and he was put in an orphanage. And he then ended up going to Prince Edward Island. He ran away from there and spent years looking for his mother. And so I talk about him getting to St. John after running away from PEI. And I say, more than ever, Tom wanted to find his mother. Shortly after arriving back in St. John, he was hanging out with some friends when a woman walked by with 2 little girls. Tom noticed her right away because she had black hair. He'd gotten to a point where he couldn't quite remember what his mother looked like, but he knew she had black hair and she was missing a part of her thumb had been cut off. Anyway, he noticed a woman with black hair. One of the Tom noticed, a woman walked by with 2 little girls. Tom noticed her right away because she had black hair. When one of the girls dropped her ice cream, the woman bent down to pick it up. Her outstretched right hand was missing half its thumb. Tom approached her and asked if she was Isabel Connors. In her typical tough-talking style, she responded, "Yeah, what's it to you?" As he explained to CBC's Pierre Pascoe, so I said, "Well, I think you're my mother." And I opened my shirt collar up, showing her the birthmark on my neck. They were both in shock. She knew Tom as an 8-year-old boy, and here looming over her was a tall 14-year-old. Now, I go on to talk about how they hung out for the day, and then she said, "Sorry, I got to go," and she was off to Montreal. But I didn't know how much they connected again over the years or whatever happened to those 2 little girls. And then after my book came out, I'm going to tell you what happened. When I was doing Stompin Tom Remembered, that was my series of interviews, I got an email from a woman wondering where to get a copy of the book. I responded, and she replied, "Thank you very much. He's my brother. We have the same mother, but I never met him." As we continued to correspond, I came to realize she was the older of the 2 little girls who were with Isabel the day of her reunion with Tom. I eventually asked her if I could interview her and was pleasantly surprised when she said she'd be happy to talk to me. Anyway, I then found out what happened to the 2 little girls. The other little girl that was with her, her older sister, was killed in a car accident. And I got to find out more about her relationship with her mother and Tom's relationship with their mother. Anyway, and I got to put some of that in there. So although she said she never met him, she did meet him when she was like 3. So it was fascinating for me that I'd written this story and wondered who were these 2 little girls. And then one of them actually reached out to me, and we talked on the phone a number of times.
I don't think the Stompin Tom legend needs more content to make it even more legendary, but you just added to. I mean, that's a great story, isn't it? Just calling you out of the blue like that, and his long lost sister. Yeah, it's great. And
you know what I found out? I said her name was Frances Messer, and Tom's mother had a boyfriend forever named Terence Messer that he talks about in his books. So I went, "Oh, you must be Terence's daughter," and she said, "No, my father's Clarence Messer." I was like, "Clarence? Is that his brother? What? I don't understand." So then I went back to the records, went to the New Brunswick archives. There is no Terence Messer, but there's a Clarence Messer who's exactly the right age. In the book, Tom talks about hanging out. It's in his first book, this one here, Stompin Tom Before the Fame. He talks about going to see Terence's dad, Oliver, in Macadam. Clarence Messer had a father whose middle name was Oliver, and he lived near Macadam. I think Tom changed the name from Clarence to Terence for the book. And I only found that out because she reached out to me, and I was able to go back through the birth records and find that out.
No, you're absolutely sure that Clarence, his real name is not Don, and Don is not actually Don. You're not going to tell me that, are you, Charlie? Don't rattle my chain, Charlie.
I know. I wish I could tell you it was Don Messer, but I'm pretty sure it's Clarence Messer. But I was like, when she told me Clarence, I was like, maybe you've got it wrong. And she was like, no, I know what my birth certificate says. It says Clarence Messer. And I was like, okay, but he talks about Terence Messer. Anyway, after a lot of going through archives, I could not find any record of a Terence, but there is a Clarence who's the right age. So anyway, so I found out lots of interesting things. And again, it's not a lot, but it was fun to put it in there. And like you say, when you do your 4th volume, yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah. Somebody just said you guys are speaking down east. Oh, the Messer band. I thought he meant our accents. I was going to say, I probably sound like a Maritimer, but you don't, Duncan.
No, I'm from Northern Ontario. I'm from Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
She's on a bar hopping spree back in Sault Ste. Marie. What a great line. Isn't that a great line? She's on a bar hopping spree back in Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
Because of me, she's like a fallen star. No, it's just
Well, he's got some amazing lyrics. The Moon Man Newfie lyrics are brilliant. I think you said that. I'm pretty sure I quote you in my book on that.
Fish that he caught, so he had to use the Big Dipper. My God, what kind of a brain came up with that?
And Sudbury Saturday Night, just the way he describes everybody in the bar.
You know what, Charlie? I don't think Tom did LSD once, but his lyrics sound like.
Well, have you seen the NFB film based on Man in the Moon Newfie? It looks like an acid trip. Things are melting into each other, and the fish that he caught becomes a star. I don't know, but anyway, it looks like a little bit of an acid trip. So, okay, I'm going to open it up to questions if people have any questions for us. And then I'm going to give away a book, and then let's open it up to questions. And then, so now I just want to tell people, first of all, where they can get our books. So let's talk about that. So if anybody has a question, ask it in the comments and we'll answer it. And if not, we'll talk about other stuff. But first, where do people get your book, Duncan?
Well, again, the whiskeyjackmusic.com is the site. And like I said, I ordered more last Christmas, Charlie. I don't know about you, but man, I sold, here we hadn't been on the road for, months at that point in time. And I don't know, just all of a sudden, my wife kept saying, "Where are you going today?" "I'm going to the post office, honey. I'm going to the post office, honey." So I hope again, it's just and plus there's a great, if I can give a plug to a bookstore in Parry Sound, Ontario, it's called Barely Used, BEAR, Barely Used Books. It's the biggest, most organized, probably the best used bookstore in the country. I can't imagine. The only one I've seen like it was in Manhattan 25 years ago. And they've sold over 50 of my books. They put it on the shelf and the darn thing sells. So, I love those people. So I expect it'll be a busy Christmas for you and me, Charlie.
Oh, good. I hope so. I don't actually know as much about mine because I don't get in March. I get a report whether they've sold any copies. So anyway, hopefully though, people will buy the new copy for Christmas. So whiskeyjackmusic.com, also your YouTube channel, Banjo Dunk. They can see all kinds of stuff there. And then I'm just seeing we don't have any questions, but I did want to tell people where they can get my book. And so I'll bring this up. And it's in Chapters and Indigo Kohl's stores across the country. Also a lot of independent booksellers. I always plug locally, Tidewater Books in Sackville, New Brunswick, and just because they've been good to me. But also there's a Kohl's bookstore here in Amherst. They always carry lots of my books. So you can also get it online from Amazon.ca. I noticed today they're sold out, but they'll have more in on November 17th. Formac, that's my publisher. Formac.ca has the book, and Chapters.ca has the book. So there you go.
Are you going to do an audio book, Charlie?
A couple of people have asked me about that, but my publisher doesn't do them. So I asked them, and they said, no, that's not something we do. So I wouldn't know how to go about doing it myself. Have you thought about doing it?
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you're not going to do one because I am going to do one. I don't want to have to compete with you, man. It's to compete with a real publisher. Mine's a self-published affair, but no, I think it would be. And the other neat thing about it is I can add sound effects. Let me just give you a sample.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, listen. Okay, here. Where is it? Come on here. Oh, it's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go.
I think maybe we're having a party.
I have clips like that.
Can we have a nice round of applause for the Whiskey Jack?
So I have some clips like that, and I could insert them in the audio version that I can't do. So I can make each story kind of into a little vignette or something. I don't know. Maybe I can get some money from the National Film Board. Can you help me with that, Charlie?
If I could figure out how to get money, I would. But yes, certainly. Let's talk. Okay. Al Widmeyer just showed up.
Hey, man.
And when I saw Edwin's name, I flashed to Al Widmeyer a minute ago. That's why I said, "Did you ever play with?" And then I remembered Edwin's the #1 fan. Al's the guy that
stories. That Al guy knows stories. I'll tell you.
I interviewed him for my book. He's one of the people who was willing to be interviewed, and he had some great stuff. Edwin Highstead wrote, "Do you remember those bumper stickers of the Stompin Tom bomb? I've seen them. I don't know them." Anyway, Jeff Kennedy already bought one of my books. Oh, wait, Mike Gould. Okay, I got a question. Tom had a show on CBC, Across This Land. How can we get copies? I don't think you can. I looked everywhere as part of my research.
I think you could go into the archives and pay a huge amount of money, which I checked on for some of Whiskey Jack's old video or old appearances on the Tommy Hunter show. I went in, they have a special site where you can go in and buy the rights to using some of this stuff. It's so expensive to the time. It would be really neat to see if the CBC would put one or two of those shows up. Did you know, by the way, Gate was on the first two shows in Edmonton, and they reenacted the meeting in the bar, Gate and Tom.
Oh, did they really?
I didn't know. Now, wouldn't you like to see that?
Tom had a variety show, for people who don't know, that ran on CBC for 1 year, and he insisted on having all Canadian artists. And I knew Gate was one of them, but I didn't know they recreated the scene from the bar. Yeah, and they don't play any of that stuff. You know, again, not to plug Rita McNeil, but I love Rita McNeil, and there's no new material of her, but she did Rita and Friends for like 3 years. There's tons of recordings there that could be released on an album, but it costs a fortune to get them. So it's not, so nobody wants to do it. So it's kind of sad, because it's Stompin' Tom. I'd love to see these old Stompin' Tom things. I don't know why they just don't air them, Anyway. Alan Bell.
Yeah.
You go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just think Tom was in his prime in those days. I mean, you hear, when I listen to the material from CKGB that he recorded with him and his guitar, when, he was just a young man, to me, that is way, way better than any of the stuff that came after. The presentation, the energy, the voice, the passion, even some of the early, there's a clip on YouTube with Country Time, I think the show, what is it? With filmed in the Maritimes. And
yes, I talk about that one. Yeah.
Man, the energy there is
he does I've Been Everywhere Man on that performance. It's amazing on that show. Yeah.
Don Tremaine introduces him on that clip. Yes.
What's that? Sorry?
Don Tremaine, who was the MC for that show, but he was also the MC for the Don Messer show. He introduced Tom at that clip, and I don't think I told this story. Let me just tell you another quick story. Don Tremaine, I went to visit him about 3 years ago. I think he's dead now, but he was in his early 90s, I think, when I visited him at his condo. Wow. And I recorded some of this. I think I have it somewhere. Anyway, he tells me that the first time he appeared on one of these shows, the first time he showed up, Don was standing there beside the producer watching this show, and they were both shaking their head. They could. Here's this wild man up there stomping his foot, singing about Bud the Spud or whatever, and they had never seen anything like this. And they just looked at each other and shook their head and went, "What has just happened?" Like they. And that was this was early TV. So
yeah, wow, yeah, he would have been something certainly different than the country music of the time. Yes. I'm just going to take a couple other comments. Alex Nicholson says, "Does anyone have a copy of the Moosehead beer commercial Tom did in the '70s?" I don't know that, actually. I don't think I've seen that one. Mike Dunlop says hi. He did a lot of Tom's posters, and you know him. I was going to say you probably know him because he did a lot of Tom's promotional material for many years. And then Al Widmeyer, there's a whole book you should write on the taping of those TV shows. I wonder if he means not sure if he means the Stompin' Tom shows or the Tommy Hunter, but I assume he means the Stompin' Tom shows. But you mentioned Tommy Hunter. So were you a regular on that show? Is that right? You were there for a while?
We had our own segment. It was called The Old Back Porch. And, it's funny. Somebody asked me to write a chapter on a book for a book recently, just called My Life in Music. And he said, make it 4 pages, 6 pages, whatever. And so I'd never done this before. I've never really sat down and kind of summarized my history. But I realized as I was writing this that those years, Charlie, couldn't have been. Whiskey Jack came along at exactly the right time in the history of Canadian music. 1977, we started. Those 10 years from 77 to 87, there was more money thrown at the CBC. There was more opportunities to play. There were more recording opportunities. The industry was in its early stages, very unsophisticated, very simple. We just had opportunities that musicians could only dream about. And Hunter was that show was one of those opportunities. So we did all of these shows. I don't know how many we did in total, but a lot. And we introduced, George Lindsay and Grandpa Jones and
Oh,
you know, all
wow.
sorts of people come out and be guests on our segment. And then after we were replaced with some other segment, our shows were rebroadcast on the Nashville network for another 4 or 5 years. So we did,
Oh, wow.
you know, essentially we were on TV all these years. So I've been milking
Wow.
that ever since, you know.
I grew up, we used to watch Tommy Hunter every week. My father loved the bit at the end where he'd sit on the stool and tell the sad story. Dad loved
Yeah.
that. So we'd watch the whole show for that. So I'm sure I watched you growing up, Duncan. I would have seen you on the show. So when I was just a little boy.
Oh, God. Don't. I would
Sorry.
put you on my knee, Charlie, and give you a whack in the back of the head.
If you started in 77, I was 11, but I'm old now, so it's okay.
Right.
So Jeff Kennedy just mentioned something. He said, Charlie told me in his book that Tom influenced Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard. And that's why I mentioned that country music was quite different. Mickey Andrews actually said that until Tom, the whole outlaw movement in the United States, Mickey really believes Tom was influential in that, because a lot of these American artists, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, people like that, would come to the Horseshoe. And at the time, they were wearing little nudie suits. And if you look at Willie Nelson in the 60s, he had the little cute little haircut and the suit. And then Tom was standing there in his old jeans and his cowboy shirt and his hat. And Mickey says that those Americans started to model that, and they became what became known as the outlaws in the United States. So
Yuri Krichek talks a little bit. Yuri doesn't remember much, he says. I've interviewed him many times and never really gotten anything out of him, but he told me that the American acts would stay and watch Tom's show. So I think he's exactly right. There's no question that you couldn't help if you were a performer, and Brent Williams told me this. If you were a performer and you went to see Tom, I asked Brent, did he influence you? And he said, yeah, he made me more entertaining. I learned to appreciate what he was doing and why he was drawing all of these people. So, and there's, you know, personally, I think our Whiskey Jack show, the Stories and Songs of Stompin Tom show, I think it's damn entertaining. It's high in energy, and it's taken. And I just mirror the same irreverence to the world that Tom demonstrated. And I got that from him. I mean, I learned how to talk to people from the stage by watching Tom all those years. So
I think I have a quote from you. Yeah, I think I have a quote from you in my book. You talk about it was like going to Stompin Tom University, watching him perform sometime or something like that. Yeah. Al Widmeyer just commented double scale. Were you paid double scale? I'm just curious. That's really good money.
We were paid a lot of money. I think he's talking about the Tommy Hunter show. Compared to what we were playing, doing the 6 nighters in Kingston and Flin Flon, Manitoba, we were paid a hell of a lot of money. It paid for a brand new banjo, and it helped diminish that mortgage pretty well as well. So yes, Al, thank you very much. It wasn't double scale. It was more than probably any other paying gig in the country at the time. And the best part was, here's the best part. They'd call us in and we would do 7 shows in one night. So they'd set up the scene and they had the props there, and we come on and we do maybe 2 songs with 2 guests. We go back and change. We had zoot suits on, these stupid, goofy zoot suits, and our hair was back combed. And there's some of it on YouTube on our channel. And then we'd come on and we'd do 2 more. So for one night, we'd get paid for 7 shows. That was a lot of money.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing. And then you'd come back like 2 months later and do some more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Al Widmeyer wants to know if you need a dobro player.
Too expensive. Those guys get a lot of money. Banjo players, they're the cheap drummers. They'll do it for free, but dobro players, no. Supply and demand. There aren't very many of them.
Okay, I'm going to give away a copy of my book, and then we're going to wrap this up here, Duncan. So, my trivia question is: do you know what year Tom was born? You can Google it if you have to, but there you go. Whoever types it in first, you're going to get a copy of the book. So, Duncan, just before I say goodbye, what's up next? You mentioned you have I guess I was going to ask you this, but you've talked about the East Coast tour, and you're hoping to do some audio.
I've been invited. There is a very special theater here in Toronto.
Sorry, I just need to interrupt for a sec. Jeff Kennedy got it first, 1936.
Hey,
Few people have said it, but Jeff Kennedy. Jeff, I'll be in touch. I know you already have the book, but we'll talk about what we're going to do. Anyway,
I thought it was,
I'll get in touch.
I thought it was 38, but what do I know? There's a beautiful theater here in Toronto. It's called the Redwood Theater, and it's an old vaudevillian theater. Back in the day, it would seat 600 people, no PA or anything back in 1928 when it was built.
Where
I can't
is this
tell
again?
you how,
Sorry, where did you say?
it's in East Toronto. It's on Gerrard Street in
Okay.
Toronto. It's just gorgeous. And the thing is, it's flying under the radar. No one knows it's here. And it's so they have it's owned by an exclusive group of artistic type people, wonderful people. We've been invited, my partner Douglas and I have been invited to put on a show or a number of shows there. So we're putting on our first show. Douglas and I, we have an alter ego. We call ourselves Doogie and Dunn.
I'm going to put it on screen while you talk.
Yeah, there we are, Doogie and Dunn. And so we're bringing a film crew in, a recording. We're going to record it. We have special guests coming. I can't even announce who they are, but they're going to be amazing. Very few people are going to be invited to the show in person, just a select group. So it won't be a huge studio audience, but it'll be sort of like a Tommy Hunter studio audience. But it will be streamed on November 20th. It's a Sunday afternoon, November 28th at 2 p.m.
Okay.
And if you want to get tickets to the streaming concert, starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go to doogieanddunn.com or go to the redwoodtheater.com, and there's a link there that will take you to the ticket site. And like I said, the multi-camera, this is going to be fancy. Biggest thing we've done since probably 2015 when we streamed another show, the whole show up at a TV studio up in Brampton. So very excited about that.
Okay.
Oh, and we're going to
wonderful.
debut. Sorry, Charlie. We're going to debut Snarley's Hill. We're going to sing.
Oh, okay.
So we've sung it for Lena. We've sung it in one other show. We've not recorded it, so we're going to tape this version, and that'll be the first chance you get to hear Connors, Lapine, Fremlin, Cameron song.
That's great. Yeah, I enjoyed the Saskatchewan one you played earlier. Is that what was it called? The one you played earlier?
2 days from Regina.
2 days from Regina. There you go.
Yeah, great.
Saskatchewan popped in my head. Anyway, we do have a couple of questions now. So before we leave, do you know Dave Gunning by any chance? Someone wants to know.
You know, I've never met Dave. He and I have spoken on the phone because before COVID, I wanted him to join us on a couple of shows. I know he tours a lot.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, God, what a talent that is. Oh, my God, I can't stand it. He's so good. I just thought it would be a really cool thing because he's toured with Tom. I thought it'd be really cool if he'd come and join us for a few shows in Ontario if he was here. We've already welcomed Billy Mcginnis, who is Tom's fiddle player for about 9 years from Prince Edward Island. Billy Mcginnis. He lives in Brockville now. He has now joined our show. So when we tour the East Coast in April, it's going to be with Billy. And so, no, I've never met Dave, but I'd sure like to. I admire, man.
He's so good. I interviewed him for my book. He's also like just a great storyteller and a nice person too. So funny. So thank you for that question. Would you say funny?
Funny guy. Oh, yeah, God,
he
cracks me up. Yeah.
And he talked to me about Tom, and I so as you know, when I interview someone, before I publish it, I send it to them in case they said something they feel uncomfortable with. And I remember I would send you stuff and you'd read it and go, yeah, I'm good. So when I sent Duncan his bit, he wrote back and said, yeah, you brought me to tears, Charlie. I'm like, well, it's your story, Duncan, but Dave, you're Duncan, Dave. But yeah, he told me some great stories about Tom that were really moving and sweet. And anyway, so that was Sean Furlot. Michael O'Brien says, and I don't know if you'll know this, Duncan, but you might. Did Tom have any favorite acts or artists that he appreciated? And did he ever do any duets?
Yeah, he invited Kim Stockwood to sing Confederation Bridge. I can't remember the year, but Kim has performed with us a few times. And she told me about this. I didn't really realize it was her at the time. But of course, everybody knows who Kim is. And so he admired her, and of course JP Cormier was his favorite. But you know, he's many of us feel that way.
JP's great.
Who else? I'm trying to think. Just off the top of my head, I can't remember. But I mean, was there anybody who supported Canadian music. Well, I know his really favorite band was Whiskey Jack. I should have mentioned that. He mentioned that.
He didn't know me. Yeah, he didn't know me, but I think he would have loved me. I don't think so at all.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't drink beer. We wouldn't have been friends.
Or at the very least, if he didn't like you, Charlie, he would have punched you in the nose. So that,
There you go. Edwin Highstead pointed out he liked Wilf Carter, and he did. He loved Wilf Carter, and
yes,
he loved Hank Snow's music, but not Hank Snow as a person.
I don't know anybody who liked Hank Snow as a person, but he did good music.
Do you know, for my new book, I interviewed Carol Baker, and she actually had a good time with. She said he was nice to her. So
Carol's such a sweetheart. She wouldn't say anything bad about anybody.
Yeah, that's probably, you're probably right, because I tried to get some gossip out of her, and she was like, "No, he was very nice."
Someday off camera, I'll tell you the story of her and Ronnie Prophet and Whiskey Jack in an elevator in Halifax one time. I'm not going to tell it now, but it was at 2 a.m. We'd all had too much beer, and I'll tell you that story sometime.
Okay,
off camera, I'm not telling you.
I want to know it because in the I'm writing a new book, and it's female singers from Nova Scotia, and there's 8 chapters. Carol's one of the chapters, but one of the stories I tell is she was opening for Ronnie Prophet, and someone within earshot of Ronnie Prophet said, "Why is she the opening act? She should be the star." And Ronnie Prophet lost it.
No, Ronnie would not like that at all, I'm sure.
So I want to hear your story. Anyway, we're getting some lovely comments. Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, there are some people that you do not share the stage with as an opening act. For example, I would never in a million years ask anybody of Dave Gunning's caliber to open for me. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with that. I wouldn't even come on the stage after that.
Right.
So what Ronnie was thinking about when he asked Carol to come on before him, what was he thinking? Like he just
she wasn't a star yet, but still she's a powerhouse performer.
She's a powerhouse.
Yeah. You don't follow that. My friend Sean wants to know if Tommy Hunter will be at your show. I kind of doubt. I don't think so.
I called Tommy a couple of years ago. I wanted to get a hold of Don and Leroy because we were planning a kind of a big mega tour of country music. We wanted to compile. This producer and I were talking about putting a bunch of Canadian country music performers together and taking them on the road, and we thought Don and Leroy would be a nice addition to that. So I didn't know how to reach them, so I called Tommy. That tour ended up being the Stompin Tom mega tour. We called it the Steroid Tour with the Good Brothers and Prairie Oyster and Cindy Church and Whiskey Jack. But I thought Don and Leroy would have been a nice addition to that. But Tommy he's getting on. He's
well, that's what I was thinking. He'd be in his mid 80s by now, is he? Probably, or so?
Yeah. He didn't know how to get a hold of them. So
yeah. Al Widmeyer mentioned that Tom did a duet with Lena. Did you? I don't remember.
Yeah, well, I think Al's referring to probably. Yeah, it was recorded on the Fiddle and Song album, I believe, the French song. But as Al knows, all of the parties, whether it was the barbecue or the Christmas party, they would come together and the band would play the French song, and the two of them would sing it as a duet. In fact,
really?
You get onto my YouTube channel, folks, you'll see Lena sing the French song with us. I think we have a version of her singing it with the Governor General, Adrian Clark. She was in the audience at the time. It might have been the same night even that Gordon Lightfoot showed up to sing with us. Anyway, Lena, there's a video on there of Lena singing the French song with Whiskey Jack, and man, she brought the house down. This lady has some pipes, I'll tell you.
Wow. So, well, there you go. So there's the link, guys. YouTube.com Banjo Dunk. I haven't put mine up, so I'll put mine up. I've got my own website. People can check that out as well. But what I was going to say, the comments here. Mike Dunlop mentioned that Tom sang with Katie Lang. I don't know that they recorded like for a CD, but they on her TV special. I think it was CANADA. I think it was that song. So
there was another one. I think there was another one. God, it was good. It's on. That is somewhere on YouTube. I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah, Al mentioned he loved Hank Williams, Hank Snow, and Wilf Carter. So there you go.
In fact, Al, you might remember that Tom, one of his first alter egos, he went through a series of names before he got to Tom Connors, and I can't remember if that's in his first. Probably is in his first book, but one of them was a combination of all those Hanks. And I just don't remember what the name was. You might know, Charlie.
I don't off the top of my head, but you're right. There was a Hank something. He had something to do with Hank Spur, as in the cowboy spurs. That was one of them. That was one of his names he thought about. Hank Spur, yeah. Mike Dunlop said on her show, and Al Widmeyer said the TV special. Exactly. Yeah, they do a great duet, and they feed off each other. He does Katie Lang song, and then they do the Canada one. So, well, Duncan, I mean, people are giving us lots of comments now, but I'm sort of trying to scan them and pay attention to you. I don't want to, make you feel ignored, but I think I caught most of the comments. So.
Yeah, no, I'm reading them here. It looks good. Yeah.
Okay. I met Tommy Hunter at a Gordon Lightfoot show, somebody said. Al Widmeyer said he could pick like Hank Snow. A lot of people don't realize Tom was quite a good guitar picker. And I talk about that as well in later shows. He would
that? Al might remember what the name of that song is. Flat Top. Tom did a song. He wrote a song where it was called Flat Tops. I can't remember. It might have been on that 1993 CD that we were on, actually. I just can't remember. It's not Tony Rice or anything, but he knew his way around the instrument. There's no question about that.
Right. Well, it's always, I was just going to say, Edwin says, keep up the good work. You can see all the comments. Old flat guitar. There you go. Yeah.
Thanks, Al. Thank you.
But Duncan, it's always a pleasure to talk to
you.
Thank you so much. And I look forward when you're on the East Coast. I feel like I know you, but we've never met in person. We've talked on phone. We've emailed a lot. We've done these.
Well, the band we need a place to stay, Charlie. So
I got 2 bedrooms and somebody can sleep with Heather and I. So
no. We need our own bedroom. Sorry, Charlie.
Okay.
All right. You and Heather will have to find some other place to sleep that night.
Okay. Ron Cunningham said, saw Whiskey Jack in Hepworth. There you go. You got a comment?
Oh, yeah. Wow. What a great show that was. Wow.
Well, Michael O'Brien says, thanks, Charlie and Duncan. Thank you to you, Michael. Thanks to everybody who watched. It's cool that you remember that. Fantastic. Anyway, thank you, Duncan. I'm going to end the broadcast. You stay on here, and I'm going to say goodnight to you privately, Duncan, and you're going to tell me a story or two about Ronnie Prophet. And, Al Widmeyer still carries a bus license, so there you go. He can drive you around in a bus. Right. Okay, good night, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Bye-bye.